Okay, we had a little problem, but I'm back again. I hope that the audio quality stays okay. Let's sit for say 15 minutes. 15 minutes only today, and then after that I will talk about the Shoji chapter by Dogen, which is also about Nirvana and samsara being one.
然后我们今天做时间稍微短一点啊，做15分钟。然后后面我们还是讨论上节课我们讨论那个生死和涅槃的问题啊。
Okay, thank you very much. Today was a super short Zazen session, so that I have a little bit more time to talk. Before I start to talk about the Shoji text by Dogen, I wanted to say something about what Xuan-san asked 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, I was talking about a text by Sawaki, and Sawaki said, when somebody has a penny whistle, we want a penny whistle. When somebody's eating candy, we want candy too. That's true for kids, and that's true when we grow up as well. We're always driven by desire, and often we don't even know what we really want. We want what the others have. And as soon as we get it, we get somehow bored or disappointed. But we're always slaves to our desire.
我们今天在分享内容之前呢，老师先解答一个问题。这个问题是我前几次上课提的一个问题，就是我们在谈到Sawaki 泽木老师，他说当别人有一个特别小的口哨的时候，你也想要口哨；当别人有什么时候，你也想要什么，就是你的欲望，就是你总是会有想要得到的这个欲望。然后老师还没说完啊，他继续。
And I think at the end of the session, Xuan asked that, or she said that also in yoga, sometimes it's said that you can, see how far a student has matured by the extent that student lets go of their desire. But then to practice, you also need a desire. How can you practice without desire? And 2 weeks ago, I basically only said, well, yeah, that's true. We also need determination. So determination is also important for practice. But now the important question is, and I think I didn't really answer that 2 weeks ago, the important question is, what is the difference between desire and the determination that we need for practice? Or is it also some kind of desire?
然后我上次提那个问题就是，老师说你要放下欲望哈，然后我提问题是因为在我们瑜伽练习当中，好多时候，你如果没有欲望的话，你是很难进行这个练习的，你很难坚持下去这个练习。那怎么平衡？就是你想要得到，然后又不能太执着，就是这个执着和放下，怎么才能平衡？然后老师说上一次他的解答是没有说全，他想今天做一些补充。
I think the difference between the desire that Sawaki is talking about and the determination to practice is that when we desire something, one thing is what Sawaki says, we always want what others have. We compare ourselves to others. What do they have? I want the same. I want more. And we also ask ourselves, if I get that, how will others think about me? For example, if I drive this car, how will that change the opinion of others? If I date this girl or this boy, what will my parents think? What will my friends think? So with desire, most of the time we ask ourselves, what can I get from that? What can I get? For example, even when we practice, when you practice Zazen with the question, what can I get from Zazen? Will it help me to be a more mindful person, a more peaceful person? Maybe will it get me enlightenment at some point in the future? That is not so different from the ordinary desire that we have when we ask, if I do this job, how much money will I get paid?
然后泽木老师呢，他说这个欲望，就是我们在练习当中要面临的这个欲望呢，基本上是你对某些事情的欲望，就好像是别人有的东西，然后你也想要，你总是在和别人做比较，然后或者是你总是在想啊，我得到这个东西之后，别人会怎么想我？比如说我在开一辆特别好的车，然后别人是不是很羡慕我？ 然后你总是在和别人做比较，你总是在想你得到了什么，像练习也一样，我们打坐，你是不是有这个欲望啊？我通过坐禅，是不是我的境界又提高了？是不是我的精神可以变得更加沉静下来？就是你在练习的时候，其实这个欲望也没有停止。
And I think the difference between desire and determination is determination means not that you ask yourself, what can I get from this practice, for example? What can I get from the practice? But there's a kind of 180 degrees turn. A little bit like, I think a couple of weeks ago I was talking about something that Viktor Frankl said. You shouldn't ask what meaning is in life, but actually life is asking you, what meaning do you give to each single day? There's this change in perspective. I think the same change in perspective happens when you don't practice out of a desire, but you become determined. Then you ask yourself, not what can I get from practice, but what can I give to my practice? How much can I give of myself to the practice? And in the end, I think there's only one answer, and that's you have to give everything. I have to give everything. There's always something more that you can give. And that's a big difference between desire, where it's more, what can I get? I want a little bit pocket money from what I do. Or the question, maybe I can give a little bit more of myself. That would be determination.
然后我们说这个得到这个欲望，就是总是和别人比较这个欲望和我们想做一件事情的决心，或者是你在做什么事情的毅力。那这个欲望和你做事情的决心，或者说我们说的毅力有什么区别呢？其实欲望就是你总是在想你得到什么，我做这个事情我会得到什么。而毅力和决心是你可以给出什么，可以做出什么哪些奉献。当然，我们最后的那个答案都是你要给你的全部，你要为你的练习付出全部所有时间、金钱哈，所有的一切，或者是你在决心和毅力做一件事情的时候，也是要决定要付出的。它和那个欲望的区别就在这儿。
Now I want to talk about a text by Dogen. The Japanese title is Shoji. In English, you can translate it as life and death or birth and death. But the meaning of these two characters, in the first line I also wrote here the Chinese characters. The meaning of these two characters is also samsara, being born and dying again in this realm of samsara, which is the realm of suffering. You can see the whole text, for example, on the homepage of Antaiji, but today we don't have the time to read the whole text, so I shortened it a little bit.
然后这个呢是我就是今天下午给大家发的那个哈，不是全部，因为我们时间有限，我们今天只读一部分。这个是道元禅师他对生死的一个看法，他对生死、对轮回、对涅槃的一个看法。
The text starts with two sentences. These are quotes by two different Chinese monks. The first said, if the Buddha is within life and death, and that is samsara, there is no life and death. So there is no samsara. And the second monk said, if there is no Buddha within life and death, we are not deluded by life and death.
然后
Yes, please.
然后我们这个开始呢，它其实是两个，就是我们说格言，或者是两个中国的和尚的两个之前说的那个留下来的两句话哈。一个和尚说的是，如果就是佛是在生和死当中的， 佛是在生和死这个轮回 samsara 这个轮回当中的，那么这里面是不是就没有生和死了？然后呢，另外一个和尚说的是，如果这里面就是这个佛呢没有在生和死里面，那我们是不是就不会被生和死所吸引、所困扰、有所障碍？就是两个和尚的不同的观点一个是在和尚在生死里面，一个是不在生死里面，或者你说这个他在轮回当中，佛在轮回当中，还有佛不在轮回当中啊。
Maybe we can rephrase this in a Jewish or Christian context. Probably you all know the story of the first two human beings, Adam and Eve, being created by God in the Garden of Eden. And they were living every day happily, and they were allowed to do whatever they wanted, except God told them they were not supposed to eat from the tree of wisdom. But then one day there was a snake that made the suggestion that they should eat the fruit of the tree of wisdom, and they did. And they became ashamed of the fact that they were naked. And then when God appeared again, he realized, oh, the two ate from the tree that they were not supposed to eat from. And he chased them out of the Garden Eden. And that's when suffering started for them. That's when Adam had to work and Eve had to give birth to children, and they suffered. So suffering started the moment that they ate from the tree of wisdom. And the big question is, how is it possible to get back into the Garden of Eden? How can it be possible to be reunited with God?
就是我们基督教它里面讲的哈，就是人之前是没有痛苦的，我们都生活在天国，然后在伊甸园里面，亚当和夏娃，还有就最初的人类，他是没有痛苦的，但是那个神，就是我们说的神哈，他警告了人，就是你们不要吃智慧树的果子。后来蛇，大家知道那个故事吧？后来蛇，然后他就是骗那亚当和夏娃，让那个夏娃去吃那个果子嘛。后来他们两个人吃了那个智慧之果之后，就有了羞耻之心，然后呢就有了智慧哈，就是有了羞耻之心，看到了自己赤身裸体。后来神他就知道了，原来他们两个偷吃的这个果子，从那儿开始痛苦就有了，就是人世间的痛苦有了，比如说我们女生分娩的痛苦啊，然后经历生死的痛苦啊，各个痛苦就开始有了。那然后人就开始有了那个承受痛苦、经受痛苦的这个开始。那问题就是那个神他是怎么知道的呢？就是他怎么知道不吃这个果子，我们就能不用通过这些痛苦呢？我们怎么能回到之前这个就是痛苦之前呢？他是怎么知道会有这个轮回的呢？大概其实这个意思啊。
So in this context, we could rephrase the first two sentences of this chapter as, if you meet God outside the Garden of Eden, you will realize there is no outside of the Garden of Eden. Or the other way around, if you forget about God, you will not be deluded outside the Garden of Eden. And at first, it sounds like a contradiction. In this case, we're talking about Buddha. The first monk says, if you have Buddha, there is no samsara. And the other says, if there's no Buddha in samsara, you're not deluded in samsara. How can we explain that? I think it's not so difficult as it sounds. The first one says, well, you are the Buddha. If you live like a Buddha right here, right now, you will realize there's no samsara, or in the Jewish context, you never left the Garden of Eden. You never left the Garden of Eden in the first place. But then often we make something special out of the Buddha. We think to be a Buddha must be something special. So it's also important to let go of this idea, I'm a Buddha, I want to be a Buddha. And at that moment where you let go of this idea of the Buddha, there's no more delusion. There is no need to leave samsara and find nirvana somewhere else.
哇，这个有点不好翻译啊。这个就是我们刚才那个说的那个一开头那个两句话啊，一个是有佛，一个是没有佛，是吧？然后他那个一个和尚说，如果是有佛的话，就是你认为佛是在这个生死轮回当中的，那可能生死就没有了，因为他佛是在里面的哈。然后第二个是无佛，或者是你放下这个轮回。那刚才他说那个有佛，那个就是你放下那个轮回，生死轮回就没有了，因为生死轮回是在佛里面的，他就没有那个轮回之后呢，就好像那些没有离开伊甸园的人，就是那些从来没有吃过苹果、吃过那个智慧之果的人，他一直是在伊甸园里面。然后第二个就是无佛，如果你把那个就是你变成佛，你是佛这个想法放下来了，佛它不是一个特别的，跟普通人都一样哈，没有什么特别的，那你可能就不会被生死轮回这个问题所困扰，就是你不会又被这个问题所困扰，所以其实有和没有，有没有这个轮回，反而又显得不重要了，你就不会被这个问题所困扰。这些可能也是一个，就像那个吃过，虽然你吃到了那个智慧之果哈，但是你没有掉入这个轮回当中。哎呀，这个好难呀，应该大概是这个意思。
So normally we would think that Buddha is someone who's living in nirvana. Buddha is someone who has left samsara behind and is nirvana. But in the next part of the text, Dogen Zenji says that's not the case. He says, if you seek the Buddha outside of life and death, so that's outside of samsara, it is like turning the cart to the north and heading for Etsu. Etsu is the Japanese pronunciation of this Chinese character, and I think that's a country that's lying in the south. For example, the country of Vietnam is written with this character Etsunan, which means south of Etsu. So if you want to go to Etsu, you not need to go south. But if you look for Buddha outside of samsara, it's like going north, when in reality you want to go south. Or another metaphor, which is basically saying the same. If you want to see the North Star, you have to look north. If you look south, you're looking in the wrong direction. So if you're looking for Buddha, don't look outside of samsara. If you're searching for gods, don't search for the Garden of Eden outside of the here and now. You have to look right where you are at this point where you're standing.
然后老师继续说的下面就是我们往下读啊，就是也是道元禅师的这个观点。道元禅师说，如果你在生死之外来看生死，或者你在生死之外来看轮回，是看不到佛的。因为就像你看他这个我就翻译哈，他就像说，如果你的这辆车是朝南，就是南边哈，朝南边的，就是朝北边的。如果你的车是朝北边，你是不可能看到南方的。你头朝北你是怎么可能看到南方？是看不到南方的。或者是你在找那个北极星，可你头是朝另外一个方向，你也看不到北极星。所以如果你在佛以外来看轮回，或者你来找涅槃，来想跳出生死的话，你是看不到。你应该在佛之中，在这里之中来找。就像我们说那个基督教里面，其实他也讲，你要找到神哈。你如果在神之外来看神，你是找不到了。你要在神之内，你要在看到现在，看到你当时在里面找，不能在外面找。大概是这个意思哈。
If you look for Buddha outside of samsara, Dogen continues, then you will gather the cause of life and death more and more. You will be bound to samsara even stronger and lose the way to liberation. If you understand, on the other hand, that life and death are themselves nirvana, there is no need for avoiding life and death or seeking nirvana. Then, for the first time, you will have the possibility to free yourself from life and death.
那个道元禅师他的观点就是说，如果你在生死之外，或者你在轮回之外，在涅槃就想要找到涅槃，其实你就失去了自由，你就失去了现在的自由。你不用等涅槃，不用等生死，不用等生死，不用等涅槃，现在就已经是涅槃。你现在有的生活就是就是已经在涅槃当中，
I often talk about letting go, and I also often say accepting. And sometimes I get the feedback from people, so what do you mean now? Letting go is the opposite of accepting, isn't it? So people seem to suppose that letting go means to get rid of something. We want to get rid of samsara, we want to let go of samsara and somehow get a grip on nirvana. But actually, it's important to realize that these two belong together. Letting go means to accept. To accept means to let go. So you don't get nirvana after you let go of samsara, but actually to accept samsara as it is means to let go and attain nirvana. I think that's the point that Dogen tries to make here at this point of the text. And he puts that in concrete terms when he talks about life and death. Life and death together meaning samsara. So what does it mean to find nirvana inside samsara? It means if life comes, this is life. You accept this. You accept it as the life that it is. If death comes, this is death. You die. There is no reason to try to escape from it, and there is no reason to cling to it either. And the next phrase is one of the most famous ones in this chapter. Usually we think that samsara and the realm of the Buddha are completely different. But Dogen says this life and death, the samsara that you are living right now, is the life of the Buddha. If you try to throw it away, you lose the life of the Buddha. If you cling to it, you also lose the life of the Buddha. So letting go doesn't mean to throw it away, and accepting doesn't mean that you cling to it. Both means you open your hands, and in that moment of letting go, you realize, oh, actually, I'm somehow supported by this hand of the Buddha. If you cling to it, you lose the life of the Buddha, and you will obstruct the activity of Buddha. So it's about letting go.
这个有点难啊，我尽量我翻大概一些意思啊，就是其实幕后老师之前他也老是说，那个就是 let it go 随他去和得到这两个，我们老说你要做到随他去随他去，那随他去的意思就是说不要得到吗？其实我们说随他去或者是你得到什么东西，他们两个不是反义词，他们两个应该是在一起的。很多时候你让他去的时候，你不在意的时候，其实你就得到了。就像我们这两次我们关注的这个就是讨论这个话题哈，samsara 那个生死轮回和涅槃，不是说生死轮回和涅槃是相反的，它俩不是一个对立的关系，生死和涅槃其实是一样的，是在一起的。就像我老师又往下读了一段，就是道元禅师他的观点，他是说，当我们 当生命来，我看这是哪？当生命来的时候呢，生命就来了；当死亡来的时候，死亡就来的。你是不可能避免的，也不可能有选择的。这里是没有理由的，就是你没有理由的，你想逃脱这个轮回吗？生和死，你是逃不了的。或者你想避免吗？你想得到吗？你根本就得不到。其实它来了就来了，走了就走了，是不可能逃避的。然后而且你也是没有理由，就是一定要对哪一个怎么说呢？就是一定要沉浸在哪一方面。比如说你很想要生，或者是你一定要很想要得到这个死亡，其实你是没有理由也不可能的。然后下面就是这个非常非常有名的这一句话，就是说，当你就是你的这一生，或者你的现在这个死亡呢，其实就是在佛的这条道路上，就是佛的一生。当你想要把你现在的生，或是现在的死，或者你现在正在的这个东西丢掉的时候呢，其实你就无形当中把佛也丢掉了。所以它应该是在一起的。你要做的就应该是张开你的双手，就是让你的观念打开，张开你的双手来，真正就是让它随它去也好，得到也好，现在有的这些其实就是你现在，就是当你放开手的时候呢，我们说让它走的时候，其实也是你现在要得到的时候。呀，这个好绕啊，大概其实这个意思哈。
The next part of the text is also a very famous, very important. When you let go of your body and mind and forget them completely, and you throw yourself into the Buddha's abode, then everything is done from the side of Buddha, and you just follow along without effort or anxiety. You break free from life's suffering and are Buddha yourself. How can you then have any hindrance in your mind? I think here Dogen Zenji is talking about something like what I said in the beginning, this 180-degree turn from until then you have this desire. I want to become a Buddha. I want to attain Nirvana. I want to get out of samsara. But here desire turns into deep determination. You give yourself to Buddha. You give yourself to samsara. You don't ask what is in there for me, but rather what can I give? You give everything. You give everything, and from that point on, your practice is more like effortless practice. It's not that I do Zazen, so that in 1 year or in 3 years I can attain something, but Zazen is doing Zazen. Zazen is using me as a tool to manifest itself. I think that's the kind of change that Dogen Zenji is expressing here.
然后我们下文这一部分的意思呢，就是当你呢让你的这个身体和就是当你放弃，就是你的我看啊，就是当你不再让你的身体和意识都随它去的时候，当你忘了，就是你要完全的由你自己，让你完全把自己怎么说呢丢出去，就是把你自己放下去的时候呢，其实你就已经在佛的这个地方了，就是你已经是成佛，怎么说你自己其实就已经成佛了，就是你和佛是在一个地方是直译啊，但是因为每一个事情呢，其实都是佛的一面。你只是跟随它，然后不用很努力，也不用很紧张，你只是随着它往前走。你应该得到的是，你会从生命当中的痛苦你会从生命的痛苦当中得到自由。然后，因为你就是佛本身，如果你已经有了这个境界的话，那什么就是这些会什么东西会干扰到你的意识呢？会没有什么东西会干扰到你的。
And now comes the last paragraph, which reads as follows. There is a very easy way to be a Buddha. Do not do any evil. Do not try to cling to life and death, but with deep compassion, work for all beings. Respect your elders and sympathize with those younger. When you neither deny things nor seek them, or think and worry about them, then you are called a Buddha. Don't look for anything else.
对，然后刚才我忘了一段，我给大家补上啊，就是所以我们要想的是，不要想得到什么，要想到你能够付出什么。然后呢，继续就是刚才上一段那个啊，就是你不要想到你可以得到什么，一定要想到你付出能够给到什么。然后下面道元禅师他又讲了，就是其实有一种特别容易的方法可以让你变成佛，就是你不要做任何邪恶的事情，然后也不要对生和死特别的沉迷，但是你要有同情心，要为所有的万事万物而工作而努力，然后要对年长的人要尊重，而同时也要同情那些年轻人，然后你不能就是怎么说你不能。你不要那个对自己的想法或者是担心，不要沉迷于自己的这个想法，或者是担心这些事情。什么事情呢？就是我们所说的这个佛，或者是你不要为我们所认为的这个佛的想法，或者是为他担心，然后也不要去寻找佛。就是这个就是最简单让你自己变成佛的一个方法。
So in the end, Dogen Zenji explains how to become a Buddha, but I don't know, maybe you're a little bit confused. I was confused in the beginning when I read this, because I thought, why does Dogen need to write this in the end? Because in the paragraph before, he already explained how to become a Buddha. And the answer is very easy. You let go. You don't have to do it. It's not your own effort. It's something that happens when you let go. In Chinese, I think you say wu wei. It's non-doing. You don't do it. So why did Dogen feel it necessary in the end to once more explain how you can do it? And then he's using these dualistic expressions like don't do any evil, have compassion for the others, respect your elders. That sounds like, well, the ethics or morals that we learn in school. It doesn't really sound like a good end for this text. In the beginning, I thought it would have been better if Dogen had stopped the paragraph before. Why would he write this last paragraph? It's so dualistic.
然后幕后老师当他读到这一部分的时候，他就想，为什么道元禅师他要有这样的一个结尾？为什么要写这一段？前面其实他已经分析了，就是如果你要想变成佛的话，就是要放手哈，要放下执念，你就是佛了嘛。因为佛它不是你努力想要成佛，不是努力来的，不是你努力想变成佛就变成佛，它是无为。就是我们中文讲里面的无为可以成佛，那他为什么要有这样一个结尾？又再写一遍，告诉你一个简单的方法呢？为什么会这样结束呢？
But now I think maybe it's something like this. The paragraph before, where he talks about completely letting go and everything is happening from the side of the Buddha. I think this change of perspective is a little bit like when you fall in love for the first time. Like in English, you say you fall in love. It's not something that you do. You don't decide, now I want to love this girl, I want to love this boy. It happens out of the sudden. You fall in love. And if the other person is also loving you, it's the most wonderful thing that can happen. The whole world changes. Everything changes. You don't have to do any effort for that. And sometimes it happens that you think, well, we will be happy for the rest of our lives. We don't need any effort. All of this, it's like a present from God. I was made to love this person. That person was made to love me. We don't need to make any effort. But then maybe 5 years later, 10 years later, if you're still together, you're married, you realize to keep the marriage, you also have to make an effort. It's not just this experience of falling in love that will carry the marriage, but you have to remind yourself, don't do bad, have respect for the other person, have compassion. So it's not only wu wei, but there's also the other side. You have to do something. It's not only the experience of enlightenment or nirvana and samsara are one, but then you also have to work in samsara. It's also, I think in the New Testament there is this metaphor that Jesus is using for the realm of God. He says it's like yeast that's in the bread. So the yeast, that's a present from God. The yeast is in the bread, but now you have to knead the bread. You have to work the bread. Otherwise, the bread will not turn into bread. So I think in the last paragraph, Dogen Zenji is, so to speak, he's talking about kneading the bread, working with the bread. And in the example with love, you need to fall in love. You cannot make that. But then when you're married, you also have to do something. You have to do something. And I think it's very nice that Dogen Zenji, in the last paragraph, so to speak, returns to the dualistic relative truth, which is also very important in Buddhism, in Zen.
就是老师的理解是哈，那个道元禅师前面他其实主要就是讲了，生活的每一个部分都是佛的一个角度，都是佛的一面，所以他一直在讲放下呀，放下执念呀，然后不能太去对哪个想法太执着哈。他其实说是所有这些都是佛的一面，就像我们爱上一个人的时候呢，你不是做了什么努力而爱上这个人，他就是发生了。它就是发生，不是你努力之后你才爱上这个人，它就是来的时候它就发生了。其实，它就像是一个礼物，是神给你的一个礼物一样。其实佛也是，它不是你努力而努力来的，它到那个时候就自然发生了。就像我们练习也是，但是为什么道元禅师最后他又说，所以有一个方法，一个简单的变成佛的方法，他为什么又强调一下呢？其实就像是我们爱上一个人哈，他就是发生了，你不用努力，但是。婚姻是要努力的，婚姻不可能只是无为哈，你要维持在这个当中，所以你也是要回到现实当中的，所以你要在这个里面继续保持努力，你不是无为在婚姻当中，所以就像那个就是所以道元禅师可能在最后呢，他也讲说，他又回到了这个现实当中，就像我们之前说的那个二元论。我不知道大家听没听过那个二元论哈，一个是逻辑上的那个，一个是现实，还有一个是你心里边就是那个二元的那个认识，他又回到了现实，就是现实当中是理想，就是理想状态是你不用做什么哈，你就是，但是其实现实当中你还是应该要付出一些努力的，就是我们二元的那个想法哈，应该是这个意思，大概其哈。
I was afraid it would take me a little bit longer, and actually, yeah, it took me a little bit longer to talk about this text, but it's a very important text, maybe the most important single text by Dogen. So if you have things that you would like to ask or share, as always, please feel welcome, because the next 2 weeks I won't be here. Anything you would like to ask it now, or in August I will be back.
大家有问题可以提啊，因为这一部分其实应该是最重要的一个部分了，就是关于生死这一部分，是吧？然后而且下2周那个老师又不在，所以大家有问题赶快问啊，8月份老师才回来，所以有问题赶快提。
Any questions? Aiko, please.
Hello, I hope you can hear me well. I think the last passage where it is about don't do evil and these kind of things, it's good. It's good that this is added, because in the chapters before that, to me it sounds like Buddha is somewhere else. I don't see myself as Buddha. And when I read the text, I think there must be something like Buddha, but where is it? I don't know where Buddha is and how I can connect to this Buddha. And then in the end, when it is about, in this way, you can be a Buddha yourself, I at least have a little bit of direction. And to me, it sounds like, so this Buddha sounds really like someone who is very free and with compassion. But in the end, I still wonder, what is a Buddha? What is Buddha? That's it's a big question, I think, but I don't know if you can answer that. But that's my question in the end. So thanks.
Yeah, that's the question that Buddha is asking you. Buddha is asking you the question. How do you live me? How do you manifest me in your daily life? You know, it's the same turn that Frankl talks about when he says, don't ask life for its meaning. Life is asking you, what meaning do you give to me? And that's the same, like, what is Buddha? Please give me the answer. No. Buddha is giving you the question. How do you turn your daily samsara life into nirvana? How do you realize nirvana inside samsara? How do you live life? How do you die death as a Buddha? That's the question that Buddha gives you as a present, so to speak.
Okay, I'm not sure if I want this present, but I think I will think about it and see what happens. Thank you.
Any other questions? Any other things that you would like to share? Mr. iPhone.
老师好。生死这个问题说了几千万年，也不可能在境外解决。
就这个没有了。
学院老师帮我翻译一下。没有，所以还有很多。
He said about life and death. It's an old question.
Yes.
Hard to answer, so it's hard to answer right now too.
Very hard, yes.
然后
所以刚才老师说那个，怎么成佛？刚才说了几句啊，说是要遵守一些道德，同情心，是这些邪恶不做邪恶这些东西。我觉得这些是助力，不是全部。
Dogen said we don't do evil. We have to be nice to people.
Yes.
That will help us. That's not everything.
还有，刚才说那个怎么样成佛的事情啊，老师也说了，今天晚上如果按照老师这么说的，我们都可以成佛了。但是有一个问题，我们停留不住呀，对吧？
He said about everybody could be a Buddha, but the question is, it's hard to keep in that state.
Yes.
他总是会生出一个自我。
You always think about yourself, ego. There's ego.
还有一个学院老师，我和老师讨论一下。关于那个吃生命树和那个神是怎么知道的这件事情？这里面有一个，
等一下，他是怎么知道他吃了，还是说他怎么知道那个果子就是有智慧？是不是这个意思？
对，是。你先翻译还是我？
那我先说。About the how the wisdom tree, wisdom fruit.
Yes.
How God knows if you eat the fruits, you can have wisdom. How does God know about that?
我自己说，我自己回答。这个这里面一个神是不是一个神格化的事情？就是我们在看书的时候，是不是 经把它作为一个人格化来进行了处理，这是一个。第二，圣经不是看字面上，圣经是被启示出来的。我今天没有站在任何的那个佛教和基督教的这个立场上，我没有，我就在中间啊。
你继续啊。
就是吧。我说的是，我的意思就是这个神不是在我的理解，我按照我刚刚被启示出来一样，我以前也没有想过，它是存在于人的中间，就在人的心里面，也就是佛性。
然后启示怎么说？我看一下啊。
就是
启示怎么翻译啊？启示
就是就是人被感悟出来了。
He said, maybe when we read the Bible, we think God is like a person. So we think, oh, he knows. He knows if you eat the apple, you eat the fruit, you can have wisdom. But when you read the Bible, how to say, it's not somebody tell you. You read it and you understand. It's like a revelation. You read it, you understand by yourself. It's not somebody tell you. It's hard like that. So, but he has no religion. He's not a Buddhist or Christian. 还有要说的吗？
有啊，很多啊。
对，你说。
啊？
继续说。你说稍微长一点点，我帮你翻译。
那个说刚才有2个和尚在讨论。我的理解是，佛在生死中轮回，也在生死中轮回。这个轮回不是我们以为的轮回，只是佛没有把生当作生，没有把死当作死，就这样。
He said about the 2 Chinese monk say that if the Buddha is inside that death and life. Outside death and life. He said he think maybe Buddha is inside the samsara, but he didn't think life is life, death is death. He think it's just like the same. He's doing a samsara, but life is not life, death is not death. Like that circle.
我暂时说到这里。
That's all. 不错啊，孟叔特别好。是不是很有？
I think there's different ways you can interpret this famous story of Adam and Eve eating that fruit from the tree of wisdom, but I think it's about that time in life, maybe when we're 3 or 4 years old, when we for the first time learn how to say I or you. We realize we are not the only person, but there's a separation between me and the world. And shortly after that, we also learn that today is not the only day, but there's a tomorrow, there's yesterday. So at that moment, we lose that sense of living in the eternal now. We lose the sense of connectedness. So that means we lose the sense of we are in Garden Eden. And of course we need to learn about time, and we need to learn that there's other people, that we are not the only one. But at the same time, that takes us out of the here and now. And it gives us the sense, I'm in samsara, but I need to somehow get back into Nirvana or the Garden of Eden or whatever we call it. And we also make this distinction between good and bad, Buddha and an ordinary person, and so on and so on.
老师说，其实他认为就是可能就是那个智慧之火有很多别的各种各样的解释哈，但是他认为就是在我们小的时候，3、4岁的时候，你刚第一次会说我和你的时候，其实就是你跟这个世界分开的时候，就是你有了自我意识嘛，我是我，你是你的时候，就是你和这个世界开始分开了。然后呢，然后你就 从那刻开始，其实你就失去了你已经和这个世界在一起的那个状态了。就是现在呀，我小的时候，其实你没有这种想法。当你认识到自己的时候，其实你就已经有了这个隔阂和分开了，就是有了这个想法了。我们当然是需要学习，需要明白，就是时间啊，然后我跟别人的区别呀，现在、过去和将来，我们是需要知道的。但是其实它只是一个想法，它只是你观念上面的一个意识，其实你是分不开的，你和别人也是分不开的。就老师是这样，他给了他的一个认识。
谢谢，很有趣。
Thank you.
Chiaki-san and Tae-san are raising their hands. Maybe Chiaki-san first.
Listening to Haiko's comment it was very interesting. Not few people say, "Oh, I'm not Buddha." That's so definite, and there's a possibility that one can be Buddha is not there. And I ask myself, and then, for example, I like to ask Haiko, "Do you know who you are?" I ask myself, "Who the hell I am? I don't know." And then the possibility somebody says you're Buddha can be. I can't deny the possibility, but so not few people are so definite. They say just so clearly, "I'm not Buddha, absolutely not." And you might be able to say it's the ego, that's the wisdom that Apple makes that way to think. And I bit confused the tree of the wisdom. If it's wisdom, you can have wisdom, but the apple is like a knowledge. That's only the information I have that impression, and tendency of either or. I'm normal or Buddha. It's actually more, I don't say complicated, but I think I am more than I am what I think. You are more than you think. And there's so many aspects in you which you don't know actually yourself. And then I would like to ask each one of you, you can really deny being Buddha. You're just normal person, and being Buddha is not possible. I ask myself. I don't know myself that well. Without knowing myself, I can't deny that either. I can be Buddha. What do you think? I'd like to ask you. Thank you.
Can you deny that you are Buddha? Yeah, difficult to deny, but difficult to affirm as well. Tai-san is also raising her hand. Please, Tai-san.
说这种能说上几天。
Hi, I hope I can phrase my question well. So you talked about almost synchronizing with Buddha after letting it go. But I had a question about the difference between being a selfless. It almost sounded like giving up on yourself and then handing that over to Buddha, so that Buddha can almost live it for you. So after you kind of like become a Buddha, if I can, then what would where would self go, and where will it kind of direct afterwards?
Where does the self go? Like often in Buddhism we say there is no self in the first place. But in how do you say, in reality or in daily life, of course it's not that you lose your consciousness. There is consciousness, but the sense of self, like I go until here and everything that's outside, that's not me, that softens. It's more like everything that you see and hear and what you encounter, that's a scenery of yourself. So you define yourself not so much like, for example, on a board of chess, there's many pieces and I'm one out of these pieces. But it would be more like I'm the whole board and all of the pieces are that's part of me. That's part of me. While usually we say I'm one of the white guys and I have to fight the black ones. And even if I'm only a pawn, if I'm removed from the game, the whole game is over. So I have to somehow make sure that this small little pawn that's me is not removed from the game. And when you let go, it's more like you become the board itself, to use that metaphor. Or another metaphor that people often use is the screen. Usually we think that our movie is like that our life is like a movie and we are the main actor. But when you let go of the self, it's not that the whole movie stops or is black, but you realize at the same time, I'm also the screen. I'm not only the actor on the screen in the movie, but I'm the screen itself. That's kind of the shift in perspective.
Okay, that's why, like, after you become Buddha and then letting it go, you need to practice the good to the people and then like respect the elderly and then like sympathize with the youngest and so on. So you kind of like extend your sense of self to the outer world, so that you kind of like link with someone else in another way, and that's probably the direction afterwards. I don't know if I can.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly why Dogen Zenji. There might be several reasons, but one thing, once you realize I'm the screen and not an actor in the movie, there's maybe that tendency to become, how do you say, completely detached from the movie. But I think at the end, Dogen Zenji is also talking about you also need to take the suffering of other people serious, even if you are free from suffering, because you realized I'm not that guy in the movie. But then you, in a way you could say, you return to the movie and try to awaken the other actors in the movie to the fact that they are also the screen. They are not only actors. So this act of compassion means that you don't just sit back and say, oh, I'm just the screen or I'm just the observer, but you also return as an actor to the movie. You return to the game and awaken the other people to the fact that it's not about winning or losing, but that they are also the board. And as the board, they are all connected. We are all connected as the board. But you have to somehow, in the relative world, by doing good, for example, by respecting the other, you have to communicate that. You cannot just sit and meditate and hope that everyone in the universe will somehow magically have the same realization. You also have to work as a bodhisattva in the relative world, dualistic world, to communicate this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I have a quick follow-up from what you said there. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So when you say you're like distinguish between the screen and then the actor in the movie. I can see it in a few different ways. And then one I wanted to compare to is like Advaita Vedanta teacher was saying, you're not your body. And then like, I think they're kind of saying something like your pure consciousness. But what the screen and the actor in the movie, I feel like is a little different than the difference between the body and then pure consciousness. It feels like it could be, you're still, the actor in the movie, you're still inside your head looking at the world as the actor, and then the screen is like something behind that. You know what I mean? Does it work to separate the body and the mind the same way, or do you think it's different? That's my question.
I'm not quite sure if I understand the question. I think what Advaita Vedanta teachers mean with pure consciousness is the screen. And the actor on the screen, it's not only the body, of course, it's also my whole psyche. The body, the psyche of this person. While what Vedanta teachers call pure consciousness, that would be the screen itself. But I'm not quite sure what you're aiming at with the question.
No, I think you kind of answered it by maybe the teacher was saying focusing on the body, but I think you're right. I think he means the mind-body complex,
Exactly.
and then the pure consciousness is the screen. So I think what you're saying almost the same thing, maybe in just slightly different.
Maybe I don't see. I think in Vedanta they make this distinction between pure consciousness and the mind. And I think the mind and the body are not so separate. But this mind-body complex would be different from pure consciousness, which pure consciousness is just the screen on which mind-body takes place.
That helps. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Anything else you would like to share tonight or today?
说的太多了，会说的太多。
Oh, no, never mind. Thank you. Okay.
Okay, so next week and week after that, I'm not quite sure. Shwen is right now in Kyushu. Can you do it from Kyushu or do we skip the class?
Yeah, I will keep to my online class. We can do pranayama next.
Okay, so next Monday and the Monday after that,
yes.
On the 18th and on the 25th, this time Shwen will teach breathing technique. And then in 3 weeks, and the week after that in 4 weeks, so the first 2 Mondays in August I will be back. But actually after that I'm gonna be in Germany, so I don't think that I can participate from Germany, but the first and the second Monday in August we can see each other again, and my plan is to talk about Sawaki next time. So see you again in 3 weeks, and you can see Shwen again next Monday if you want. Thank you very much for participating. Have a nice week. Thank you very much. And thank you, Shwen, for having us and for translating.
Thank you. Thank you.
是。
Thank you.
Sign in.